Hey everybody, welcome back. So as we close out 2023 and head on into 2024, I want to kind of discuss the state of the kayak industry. And namely, I want to discuss maybe what we learned from the past, what everything's looking like today, and what I think may be happening in the future. So thanks for coming by, guys. We're going to get right into it. Okay, so first thing I'm going to talk about is the big one, COVID. How did COVID affect the kayak industry? Many of you probably already know this, but regardless of what your views are or opinions on COVID, it had a profound effect on the economy. Certain things boomed and you saw a huge uptick in demand, namely the kayak industry, camping industry, RV industry, pretty much anything that involved the outdoors, getting outside in small groups, and basically enjoying our surroundings. We had to find something to do, and kayaking was kind of in the bullseye of those few industries that really saw the demand uptick. So in my opinion, the industry wasn't ready for it, and a lot of us weren't, obviously, but kayak specifically, COVID saw a lot of issues with manpower, with quality control, and a lot of those issues stemmed from the manpower issue. You had a lot of new people doing new things, and they had to do them quicker to get to meet the supply. So you saw a lot of kayak manufacturers rush to get stuff out. You saw a lot of kayak retailers trying to get their hands on as many as they could possibly get their hands on, because as soon as this hit in 2020, and 2021 was even uglier in some states, but it saw a lot of new kayak manufacturers. It saw a lot of maybe older kayak manufacturers. It saw a new opportunity to market themselves and market hard. In my opinion, some of them really went too hard on the COVID area, and it kind of saw them teeter out a little bit as COVID released its grips on the economy and the world. So in kayak industry specifically, we saw a huge supply and demand, and namely the supply couldn't even touch the demand. And what that saw is you saw a lot of people with the stimulus checks, with money to spend and nothing to spend it on in a lot of areas, depending on where you're at. Our business here, we have always been a high capacity volume dealer, so we felt like we were in a little better position than most, but we were still waiting on things. We were selling kayaks that weren't even here yet. We would get packing lists on trucks that hadn't been loaded yet, and we're selling off them. It really was the Wild West. But the problem with it is a lot of people with money to burn in their pocket really were buying things that they may not have needed or may not be using as much. Okay, so the next thing, and this is really tricky, and I'm gonna keep this as short as possible because the last thing you guys want me to do is talk about economics and all that jazz, but I'm talking about inventory. So what 2021 and 2020 did is it caused a lot of retailers that couldn't get inventory in to almost panic buy. So 2022 saw a bit of a correction in that, and in my opinion, it was a bit of an overcorrection. So the manufacturers were able to get out a lot more kayaks. Retailers were hungry to cash in on that, and they really kind of overpurchased or overextended themselves. So the reason that affects them is they have so much inventory in stock, the demand kind of teetered back down just a little bit. And the fact that they still had 2022s in stock toward the end of the year, that affects their preseason order. So what happens with a kayak retailer is they're ordering preseasons that sometimes manufacturer may offer certain deals, and you're not going to do that if you have a ton of the previous years still in stock. So that's going to force you to discount them deeply, which affects their profit, which affects a lot of smaller shops' ability to stay in business. And what the manufacturers did is they really saw a downslide in their preseason orders and saw a lot of orders canceled because they just weren't getting rid of kayaks like they were in the previous 2 years. That really kind of threw a monkey wrench in the entire industry. You saw that in 22 and a little bit in 23. And another thing that it did is the bubble finally burst on the used kayak market. So those of you that have looked on the used market, you've seen a ton of kayaks out there. You've seen a ton of different price ranges for the same kayak. And a lot of that is from those people that thought they were going to get the premium price for the used product that they were getting the previous years because you couldn't buy the new kayak. Now that the new kayaks are out and they're plentiful, they're everywhere, the used kayak market really kind of took a dive, and a lot of people were stuck with those premium kayaks that maybe they didn't need, but they were buying anyway. And what happens when you have too many kayaks from the previous year in stock, that affects how many of the upcoming year's kayaks that you're purchasing, which ultimately hurts that manufacturer also. So they're scrambling around trying to figure out what to do with all these kayaks that have been ordered and they got canceled, and they've got just literally inventory sitting around collecting dust and costing them money. Talking about and moving into today's state of affairs. So what is everything looking like today? And it's really interesting. So as the previous 3 years has really kind of died down and leveled off, we're starting to see some kayak manufacturers, some of their prices are backing up a little bit. Some of their prices are going up, but very slightly, nowhere near what they have in previous years. You're starting to see things level off a little bit. But what I've noticed is innovation. You're starting to see more value-based, even at the premium price. Because again, if you're spending a lot of money, you want to know what you're getting for that money. And is this going to be a kayak that you're just going to outgrow in a year or two? That's simply just with your quality manufacturers, that's not going to be the case. There's going to be more options for you. And honestly, there's going to be options to grow into them. So we've seen it with Big Adventures, with Bonafide, with Native. Hobie's kind of done some small tweaks to correct some issues in the past, and I think you'll see that you'll see that further on into 2024 and beyond. You'll start to see more value for what you're paying, and you'll start to see the competition really ramp up, because make no mistake about it, each manufacturer, they want your money. They want you to be in their kayak, and they're going to do a better job, I feel, in making the case for that. And who wins in that situation? Really, everybody does. But you as the consumer are going to have a lot better quality options for the money that you're spending. You're going to have kayaks that I feel that you can grow into, that you're not going to grow out of in a couple of years. It's just like buying a kid a fancy pair of shoes and it doesn't fit them 6 months or a year after that. That is kind of be what you're seeing in the kayak industry. And you're going to start to see even more innovation moving forward, which obviously I'm excited about. I love new products. I love gear. And honestly, I'm all for it. Again, because at the end of the day, I work at a paddle shop, but at the end of the day, I'm a consumer just like you guys. I buy this stuff. I see things, that new shiny kayak or that new shiny accessory, and it gets me excited. So, okay, so closing this up, I want to talk about some pros and cons. So namely, we're talking about the last few years and moving forward. The pro is, hey, all these manufacturers are competing for your dollars. So you're gonna, either they're gonna make something that you're gonna wanna buy and get excited about, or somebody else is going to. So you're gonna see a lot more competition, quality competition in the next few years, and I'm all for that. That gives you more bang for your buck. So again, harping on that value proposition is, if they want your money, they're really going to have to show you something that is going to justify that purchase and purchase from them. So you're going to see a lot of research and development. You're going to see a lot of new products. And be honest with you, some of those products are going to fail. They're going to have to try to do that. Constantly coming out with something new. Nobody can afford to be stagnant, in my opinion, in 2024 and beyond. If you're stagnant, you're going to get left behind because somebody else is coming out with something brand new. Think about Old Town's EPDL. Think about the Titan X or Bonafide's PWR. Those are exciting kayaks. And those are just a couple of manufacturers that are bringing products to the market. That is going to continue. Next year, you may not even hear from those companies. It may be 3 other companies coming out with something that just blows the roof off the place. And then my final pro is going to be, you're starting to see the prices level off, and I've even seen some models come down in price. Just for an example, 2024 Jackson, the Bite. So Jackson Kayak's Bite is still that $9.99 price point. I feel like that's the right price point for that kayak. It's a phenomenal, versatile kayak. And you've also seen the Stax. So the Stax is just a step below the Bite. It's a very versatile kayak, but in years past at $899 and even $920, it really didn't present the value. For 2024, the Stax is coming out with the forest camo color, which looks phenomenal, and it's coming out at a $799 price point. To me, that's a much better value. If you're comparing it to the Bite, $999 for the Bite versus $799 for the Stax, it's a little bit more of a decision maker than if there's just a $100 difference between the two, you're gonna go with obviously the slightly higher priced option because of the value. So let's go over the cons. So there are some cons, and they may not be huge deals, but you're gonna really start to see, and you've already seen that, the used kayak market is really starting to bottom out. A lot of people were trying to get premium prices, so now they're just simply trying to just almost give them away to an extent. Depending on what they're looking for, there's very few kayaks that have that huge high demand, namely sit on top fishing style kayaks, but a lot of people bought some specialty stuff, and with the specialty kayak, you're really shrinking the customer base, and unless you've got something that is just that phenomenal once-in-a-lifetime buy, you're really going to be taking a hit on the used market. And that's kind of put a bad taste in some people's mouths because they feel like they've spent a premium price and they feel like they should get a premium price after the fact, but it's just supply and demand. If there's 100 other used kayaks just like it for much less money, they're going to have to take that hit on it, unfortunately. Another con, and this is something that is really, I'm a real big stickler on, is the too good to be true kayaks and kayak manufacturers. If you see the market for pedal drive kayaks is usually around $2,000 and above, and you see a kayak coming out and it's a $1,000 pedal drive kayak with all kinds of features on it, guys, do your research. Don't run out and buy the first thing that just seems too good to be true, because chances are it actually is too good to be true. I can't tell you what to do with your money, and nor would I ever try to do that, but I've seen these kayaks in person and just know there's a reason these kayaks are quite a bit cheaper than the other ones. It has nothing to do with greed, it has nothing to do with anything else, but it is a lower quality and some corners were cut. If that's not a big deal to you, by all means, if you're comfortable with doing it, have at it. I'm not saying that at all, but a lot of people buy these kayaks with the thinking that I'm getting the same quality as I am with this $2,000 kayak at this $1,000 kayak, and that's not always the case, and it very, very rarely is. Final con, your raw materials are still highly sought after. They're still going up. Wages are going up. That all affects. So anytime a wage goes up, and I'm talking about your hourly rate or your salary rate, the way I always explain it to people, it's simple economics. Every time a hand touches the product, the price goes up. That's the person putting it together. That's the person loading it on the forklift, driving the forklift, loading it into the truck, paying the driver to drive it, paying the guys to unload it at the retail stores, and then obviously paying us to sell the product, to carry the product, and to market the product. All of that costs money. As those wages go up, the cost of doing business goes up, and there's a certain level of money that they have to make just to keep the doors open and to keep everyone paid. And you got to fund this research and development for these innovations. You're still going to see maybe the prices level out, but they are still going up. There's a lot of factors that go into it. There's a lot of things going on in the world today that can affect the price of something as simple as a kayak or a kayak accessory. So we all do what we can, but obviously there's a lot of things out of our control there. So closing this down, guys, I'm excited. Kayak industry is not dead. It's far from it. I feel like we're starting to scratch the surface. we're going to transition into something new, and we're really kind of in uncharted territory. Though I see the lines between kayak and boat severely blurred, and you're going to start to see some crossovers there. I think you've already started to see that a little bit, but I think that is kind of where it's going. Motorized options, electronics, the ability to do it on a kayak, you're going to start to see that. You already see it in the high-priced options. I think you're going to start to see that bleed into what I would call mid-range prices as well, and that can only make things better. Okay guys, so that's just my opinion on everything. I'm really excited to see where things go. My opinion is just that, it's my opinion. I'd really love to hear your opinion down in the comments below. Definitely like to talk about where you think the industry is going, where you think has happened, maybe some things that you think benefit, how we benefited from the previous 3 years, either things to look for or maybe some quality issues moving forward that a lot of these manufacturers learned. So anyways, let me know what you think down below. As always, I really appreciate the support, really appreciate you watching the video, and as always, we'll see you on the next video, guys. Thank you.